Welcome to the brand new world. We're the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. We're the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. We're the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. We're the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. We're the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. Give the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. Give the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. Give the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. Give the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. We're the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. We're the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. We're the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. We're the children of our Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. children of Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth. We will heal the earth, heal the earth, heal the earth.
Stars, they can tell you stories which are brighter than yesterday. The streets have never been so quiet. The squirrels found a new hideaway.
Tomorrow will never be the same. There is so much hope in our hearts. Brick by brick, we shall overcome and walk right into a new start.
Welcome to the brand new world. Give the children of Mother Earth. We will heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth, heal the earth.
Namaste. Join us this Sunday for a free global online session, COVID Special.
We will heal the earth.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And a global namaste to everyone watching Healing Our Earth again this Sunday, the 12th of September, 2021. A warm welcome to you. And the first thing always sharing here is please do share the word. Whoever you may be, just sharing on WhatsApp or Facebook, wherever it may be, to sharing the link that we are on live at the moment. So this is another week, and I hope you've been watching. Do go to healingourearth.com to see the previous weeks that we've had so far, from cooking to yoga to kids to dance. And this week we explore everything sort of COVID related. COVID remains with us, but how do we remain strong? How do we develop in our love, in our self-esteem, in our confidence, in our friendship? And that's what Healing Our Earth is there as a platform for you. So namaste again, and a warm welcome to everyone watching. And I'm really excited today. There is a really interesting array of speakers, as there always is. And it's amazing to see meeting all these different personalities, the journeys they've had, and the contributions they give to humanity at large. And we have some excellent speakers at the moment. So as always, we begin first with an opening prayer. In Sanskrit, may we invoke the higher. So as we do that, those of you know, we chant Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. So those of you know, please let there be peace everywhere. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha. Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May none suffer. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So with that, hopefully we're all feeling at peace and ready to start this session. So with that, I'm hopefully going to be able to share a screen and show you. Hopefully you can all see the screen. So I hope we can have a nod from Shoba and Hino. You can see the screen there. And this is our 94th event. Unbelievable, since Healing Our Earth started. So I hope you've been joining in. And as you can see, we're starting. I'll be your host today, and I'll show you a few things about myself. But more importantly, we have Shoba and Hinu Nihlani, who are coming very soon with us, and I'll be introducing them in a moment. And we also have Dr. Ranjit Kumar Singh. So that's where I have a chance to host these two wonderful sessions. We then move on, and as you can see, 4 o'clock UK time, I have my co-host Sheila Dobby, who'll be joining, and you can see with her afterwards a very muscular picture of Nick Delgado, Professor Bardwaj, and our resident sort of expert in COVID, Dr. Punkanya. So you can see at 4, 5 and 6 o'clock what's happening. As you can see there, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube and WhatsApp. Please do go to healingourearth.com. There's the website and have a look. And our mission statement to promote a happier, peaceful, healthier and inspired global community by delivering multicultural online edutainment. So what's coming up? So just to say I'm with you. So my name is Milan Shah. I'm a medical doctor working in London. That's me at work, and be happy to share with you some medical insights, and working pretty much 6 or 7 days a week here, working as a family physician. So what have we got coming up in the next few weeks as well? So next Sunday is the Vegan and Vegetarian Kitchen, the 19th of September. The 26th, we'll have Bollywood Fun. Lots of singing. I've heard that Shobha and Hina were, certainly Shobha is a good singer along with her husband. So we'll see what's going on there. And on the 3rd of October, a motivational and inspirational session in line with Mahatma Gandhi Jayanti. And then just a heads up for those who are based in London, I'm sure there'll be some online transmission as well. Do save the date. The world famous Diwali on Trafalgar Square, Diwali in London, is back after a break from COVID. We're actually back on Trafalgar Square. Saturday, the 23rd of October. Keep your diaries free. There'll be live entertainment on a multi-screen. There'll be food, there'll be lights, and it's on Saturday evening from 4 till 10. This is a Mayor of London event in partnership with DIL, the Diwali in London Committee. I think we have enough there. So without further ado, these are our speakers now. So I'm going to just introduce now our speakers and our session ahead. So what more than speaking about reading and books as well. I'm really excited to invite our first two speakers, which are Shobha and Hinu Nihalani, who are mother and daughter. The topic is books that inspire us to remain hopeful during the pandemic. Many things have happened during this pandemic to try and affect our social cohesion. We've been left alone at times, many times been isolated. Yes, there's TV, there's the phone, but one thing that probably has been neglected and I'm really excited to explore is that of reading and of books. So Shobha Nihalani has been writing for over 25 years and is an author of 11 books. Do Google her, and I had a look at her website, which is shobhanihalani.com. You can see her full details on our website. During COVID times, she actually took a slight detour in her career path and became a life coach. And she took up the challenge to write a self-help book and chose a topic close to her heart. Her book is titled Reboot, Reflect and Revive, Self-Esteem in a Selfie World. I love the title. So I think we'll be learning a little bit about Shobha's new book as well. And in this session, she will share with audiences or with us books that have inspired and motivated her, and a chance to self-reflect and find solace. Her daughter Hinu has been a writer for over a decade as well, so looking forward to your experiences in writing, and currently works in finance. During COVID, she also faced personal challenges that led her to decide to change her mindset and beliefs about herself. Along her journey, she's been inspired and challenged by some of the books she's read. So with that, Shobha and Hinu, great to see you on the screen. Namaste from Hong Kong. So you are obviously here in Hong Kong at the moment. Shobha, I think you've traveled the world. You've lived in many different cities. And as we were speaking before, I understand it's around about 9 o'clock in the evening in Hong Kong.
Yes, that's right. And thank you very much. And a global namaste to everybody. And lovely to meet you, Milan, and to share about books. I mean, Hino and I, we've just loved books. It is part of our journey in just growing as a person, and especially in COVID times, it has really helped us in many ways. And Hino's more of a reader of interesting, even to an extent, fantasy books, but also self-help books. So I really want to start with one which we both loved, and we both talked about it a lot. So, so.
Excellent. So I think, the format of this next sort of time we've got together, I think you'll share some of the books that you've read and explored together, and that might inspire some of our audience to maybe get out and get them as well. And certainly we'll spend a bit of time maybe at some point exploring the whole joy of reading. I do feel that has sometimes been a challenge in this current new age of devices, of screen time, and the joy of picking up a physical book and reading it. And even if Hinu or Shobha, you've got tips, many of us are parents or even as adults getting back into reading. But do share some of the books, and I like the idea of fantasy as well.
Yeah. So the first one we'd love to share is called Outrageous Openness. And it's an amazing book by Tosha Silver. It's so inspiring, uplifting in many ways. She shares stories about real life issues people have experienced and incidents that actually bring you to a moment of reflection and understanding about oneself. So we have choices in our lives where we can actually choose a path to be happy and hopeful, or we can complain and feel bad about ourselves. So in this book, there are many interesting stories, and I'd love Hinu to share something about it too.
So I actually came across this book at the start of 2020 when we had no idea that we were about to face a global pandemic. And I was in no rush.
Maybe just hold up the book again, just maybe just give us the title again.
Yeah, Outrageous Openness.
By Tosha Silver. So those who are watching, Outrageous Openness by Tosha Silver. I love. It's just a great title as well.
Yeah. So I came across it by accident on an audiobook, and I wasn't in any rush to read it. But then there was talk of a pandemic, and I also left my job around that time without realizing how much life would change. So I felt kind of drawn to read the book because I was feeling a bit lost. And if I were to summarize what the book is about in one sentence, it's if you are inclined towards believing in a divine force or in even just a universal energy, even if it's not a religious thing, it will really help you to incorporate that into your daily life and into the way you think about yourself and the events around you. So it's a series of stories about the author herself and her friends and how they have faced difficult situations, but in a relaxed and graceful manner by recalling the energy, the good energy of the kind of universal energy. So I guess to give an example, one thing that one of my favorite stories is when the author says that she often goes for walks in random places she's never been to before. And on those walks, she lets her kind of intuition decide where to take her. So she feels drawn to going in a certain direction or towards a certain place. That's what she does. And often she says that the result is that she gets something that she needed. So sometimes she'll find herself in a secluded park where she could get some reflection time. Or at other times she bumps into an old friend and they end up catching up that day. So it's quite cool because you kind of open up your life to possibilities that you didn't know existed. And when we're stuck in lockdown, basically unable to go anywhere, you can look at your own life with having possibilities you didn't consider before by thinking of it creatively. And that can happen through exploring books. And in my case, I was looking for a job for most of that time. And by using Tosha Silver's way of thinking and the book's way of thinking, I was focused on getting the right job for me rather than fixating on any one specific role, even if it seemed like the perfect match. And there was a case where I was being considered for a really good role that I really wanted, and they took like 3 weeks to make a decision. And it was excruciating to wait that long, especially because we're going through a pandemic. It's not that easy to get an opportunity. So in the end, I didn't get the job, and I had to think about how to face that situation and how to regain some hope that I would actually get a job that I would feel excited about. So I've been talking for a long time.
No, please continue. No, because it's inspiring to see that how if Hinu would come to me and share her thoughts, especially about what she's going through. And then suddenly she shares this book and how she got the inspiration to deal with rejection or to deal with a situation that can get you down. And books have a way to uplift you. And this particular book really gives you simple stories, but they really hit you hard in the sense that you suddenly say, oh, I could do this differently. I could think differently. I could feel differently. And it's actually quite simple to do that. But
You
obviously,
challenge yourself to do something differently from how you used to.
yes,
And when you can't change your surroundings during COVID, you kind of consider maybe I can react differently to something.
yes. So
Yeah.
that's where we've had a lot of like chats about it over tea, and we've shared also different situations, life experiences from last year and now. I would say there's been change. Obviously, as a result of pandemic, it we see around us a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people have faced many situations, traumatic situations, but we also feel that there is a way that we can encourage, I mean, in a way that read something that'll bring some solace, so bring some joy to yourself. Small moment to moment joys make a huge difference. Do something that really makes you happy. And for us, it's been books, it's been reading. We've shared that a lot.
So I mean, it's been great to hear. So that this particular book came at a time which was really, as you say, it came to pre-COVID, in fact.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
and you start off as an audio book, and it seems to be a collection of stories or reflections. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's
So-
mostly based around stories, and the author, her tone is sort of more friendly, kind of sharing tone. I find that with a lot of books about spirituality and things like that, it can go over my head a bit, or I can feel like, well, okay, this is for really enlightened people. It's not for me. But I feel like a book like this is very accessible. And when when different concepts are explained in story format, it's also easier to remember them and keep them in mind when I'm facing, or when any of us is facing a similar situation.
Okay, and then you gave an example of, you know, maybe faced with a rejection or a feeling of failure or whatever, you know, feelings you may have come up with. And how did the book help you? Because often, you know, nowadays if we're faced with that, people will do whatever. I think you've done a very wholesome thing. You've got a really great mother and daughter relationship as well. You can talk these things through, whether it be that or etc. But we might find others will just write, well, I'll just binge watch, you know, lots of TV, or I'll do something. So how did turning to a book, and this particular book, then, you know, what lessons did you pick up to cope with a feeling of rejection or mindset in that sense?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I do go back to this book sometimes if I am feeling a bit like down, or I'm feeling lost. In that situation, the book, going back to the book, helped me remember that the right job is out there, and I'll get the offer at the right time. And in the case where I got rejected from the job that I really wanted, I had to really challenge myself and say, was this really the right job for me? How can I be so sure that I know best? Because in all of our lives, we've had situations where we thought we knew what was best for us. We tried to get it, we didn't get it. And then it turned out we'd actually dodged a bullet, and it was actually not the right thing for us, but we didn't know it at the time. So I try to remind myself that I don't have 100% knowledge of the entire situation. I don't know how it could have turned out. I don't know if maybe there was an element of this job that wasn't right for me, and that there is something else which will be right for me. So I kind of reassured myself to say, if I wasn't picked for this job, I just hope that, you know, everything works out for the employer, the person who was picked for the job, and for myself. Like, I wish everyone well in the entire situation. And then I move forward and I say, okay, well, there is going to be a job out there for me. I'm not going to sit back and kind of be passive about it. But because I'm feeling kind of down, I am gonna, you know, I'm just gonna like feel the feelings for this afternoon and just kind of go for a walk or have a cup of tea or talk to my mom. And then the next day I just get back on it with the job interviews and, you know, with reaching out to people to have Zoom calls and things like that, which I did a lot of. So a book like this, in my case, helped me to not be resentful of the situation, to wish everyone well, to let go. And that helped me to move on a lot quicker. So that's how it helps me. And also, you know, believing that the future holds something better also helped me a lot through last year, because it's just so easy to fall into despair otherwise. And that's something that I was very inclined to do before I came across the book and thought maybe I should try being a bit more hopeful or optimistic.
Sure, and there's something about stories that can impart a message that's sometimes very difficult in sort of, especially in spiritual self-help concepts. You know, you can only write it in so many times, but I think it sounds like the concept of a story, which we have even in many cultures, whether it be Indian culture or you know lots of other cultures where they'll have stories to impart a particular parable, etc. And it sounds like for you particularly that you know, as you said, you know, reading a spiritual book might feel a bit heavy. So it sounds like this could be an introductory book, maybe not on certain concepts, but at least to bring that sort of topic out for a newcomer. It does seem, and some things you mentioned of being in tune with a wider cosmos, knowing that maybe everything I know is not quite, you know, there may be other things out there that may be more appropriate for me. And also the wish and the wishing well, I like that as well, that you know, well, whoever has got that job, wish well for that employer, maybe that is the right thing, and move forward, because often we find, and we've seen that in many things, that a sense of bitterness or negativity approaches, and that actually then can change our own mindset as well.
That's true, but it's not just these books that have really been uplifting and enjoyable to read during COVID. It's also been fictional genre as well. Like lots of fiction books have also passed through our reading material, and it's just that I guess in these times we want to read stories about people who have overcome challenges. We want to read stories about complicated characters who have faced conflicting situations, have come out of it stronger, more empowered, more evolved, and more, you know, capable to adapt to a new environment. So in that sense, I think I know Hinu loved Harry Potter as a teenager, the whole series of Harry Potter. She read it, but in COVID, you actually read the whole audiobook, isn't it? I mean, the whole series of it.
Yeah, so well, during COVID, I actually finished the audiobooks. The 7 books actually totaled to over 100 hours. So, and I started them a couple of years ago. So for me, it was a long process. But finishing the Harry Potter books during COVID was something that also was very interesting, because in the last couple of books, the kind of magical community is facing a huge enemy, and you know, everyone's dealing with the situation differently. And it, you know, in one part, and I hope this isn't a spoiler, but most of the last book, Harry Potter, the main characters are actually in their own lockdown. They're isolating from everybody. They're hiding from the enemy, you know, all that sort of thing. And they're trying to go out as little as possible. They only go out to get groceries or whatever. So,
yeah, it's very true.
It's relatable. yeah, it's quite relatable.
Yeah, so it was a weird parallel reading that while going through what we were going through. But I wanted to mention, I mean, despite having read other books, I wanted to mention Harry Potter because it was an audio, I heard it in audiobook format. And I think that when you find the right audiobook voice, it can be really calming. And I heard the Stephen Fry version.
Oh, he's excellent. He's got that. So I did the same as you, actually. So I did books 3 and 4, which are about 40 hours. I did those with my sons, with my kids. So I've certainly got a good. I can definitely commend that. So we took one book every summer, and we should explore the concept of the audiobook, which I think is been around for a very long time. We know audiobooks have been around for many years, and you could go to the library, certainly here in UK, in England, and get a CD or a tape. But I think with the advent of streaming and sort of web-based things, I think podcasts and online books have become into their fore. What do you find is good about an audiobook, which is, and what are the pros and cons? Because well, I've heard it on an audiobook. Is that the same as reading? Is it different? What have been your experiences?
So in my case, so I listen to a lot more audiobooks than my mom.
Yeah.
So she could tell you all the cons, I guess.
Yeah, they hurt my ears.
So in my case, the reason I actually got an Audible account is because of when I was 10 years old, our class teacher played the Harry Potter audiobook read by Stephen Fry. So it was around for a really long time on a CD. And I remember it was during an art class, we were doing painting, and it was so relaxing, so beautiful to listen to, that I remembered this, decades later. And I thought, well, maybe I'll try that. I'm not 10 years old anymore, but maybe it'll still relax me. So I started that. I got it on Audible because I don't think it was really available anywhere else. And so I started that, and it really, I think with audiobooks, it depends on what your first experience of it is. So I was very lucky. Stephen Fry is a master at this. He, fun fact, he actually did 140 distinct voices over this series. And that is just incredible. I actually tried to record an audiobook myself during COVID because I had time. My mom had published a fiction book, The Blue Jade, and I thought, there is a way on Audible to actually record an audiobook and kind of be a freelancer in that sense. So I thought, why not try it out? So I tried recording 1 or 2 chapters, and it was incredibly difficult. There was one character with a British accent, and when I did it, it sounded very fake. I tried to do a man's voice, and it just sounded stupid. So I have a lot more respect for audiobook actors and voiceovers as a result of having tried it myself. So
I think certainly with a fiction book, or it's got different characters, etc. It is that much more. I think when people are just writing maybe their biography or something and then reading it out, it's different. And I think some books work well as audiobooks, and others need to be abridged. So that's something I think you see on some of these things. You get an audiobook version, which may not be the full book, but sort of a bit more palatable. Certainly with Tolkien's Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, you find sort of abridged versions, etc., which may be easier to palate. But so yeah, certainly I think those are and I think in this modern world, certainly audiobooks are there where people are spending more time, for example, on the road, maybe not during COVID, but lockdown, but otherwise people are driving, and to use that time more creatively rather than necessarily getting always depressed by the news or whatever, actually is listening to some sort of either a podcast or an audiobook.
While you're cooking, you're doing your chores and stuff, you can have an audiobook on in the background.
Yeah, for sure. And that's right. And I think it's exploring Harry Potter again briefly, and that escape into a story with characters can just give us that sense of relief. And I think, again, this is something different too, because people say, well, I'll watch, the latest soap opera, or I'll watch a film or something. But again, we should explore the depth of character you get in a book, or the time you can spend. So even with my children, they would read the books first. So taking Harry Potter, so we're not watching the films until you've read the book, and then you could see how much more detail you get, even giving that same example. And you talked about courage, etc. I think, again, those who haven't read Harry Potter, it follows, I think, I'm not an author by any means, but you'll know there is a literary technique called the hero's journey. And I understand that Harry's is a hero's journey, starting off sort of as an outcast, finding that mentor or the guru, which we find is, in this case, Dumbledore, etc. Other times having to face certain challenges, etc. So there's a real literary technique here that J.K. Rowling used. And it gives us that inspiration when we find outsiders trying to overcome. And he's not the typical hero figure either. He's not sort of he's this sort of young boy or someone, without again giving away the story. But though I think most have read or know about Harry Potter, but certainly to come back and experience that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there are mental health elements as well of it. I think after, especially Harry Potter goes through difficult challenges, and how he responds to them, he does get sort of, his mental health suffers, and you can see that the author has written that into his
Sure.
plot line. I don't want to give away too much, but
Yeah, no, sure.
it
And
just feels like, you know, in a way she's being quite loyal to the human condition and what happens to you when you experience something that he's experienced, and then also how he overcomes that. It's quite interesting.
sure, yeah, and then without giving too much away, but there's certainly themes of depression or anxiety which are quite sudden. And J.K. Rowling said herself, obviously, those who know her story, she herself went through quite severe depression, being a single mother, and what she went through before she even came up with the idea of Harry Potter. But excellent. Well, I'm really excited by that, and also Stephen Fry. And who knows, when you come to London, my friend organizes literary exhibitions, and he's friends with Stephen Fry and got him to speak. So when you come, we'll you can come in and meet with him, or listen to him speak live. But certainly he's a very talented author. And again, on the theme of mental health, those of you know, Stephen Fry himself suffers from a condition called bipolar disorder. And if you listen to Stephen Fry's history and the amount of work he's done for mental health, Stephen Fry himself, so certainly on the BBC in England, there are quite a few documentaries he's created on his own condition, which is a bipolar disorder. So, really interesting story.
So I'm on that note, I just want to share something that is not a new book, but it's quite old, and I love flipping through it. So it's called the 100 Simple Secrets of Happy People.
Nice.
Yeah, so I just, as you can see, I've got a few bookmarks.
Good bookmarks.
There.
And who's the author for that?
It's David Niven.
Okay.
And so some of them are really short. They're very short. They just explain things in such an easy and unassuming way, where they share that unhappy people take a situation in which they are not sure, and then they tend to come up to a negative conclusion. So, for example, if they aren't certain why another person is being nice, they assume that the person must have a hidden selfish agenda. Whereas happy people take that same situation and guess the positive possibility, that is, that the person really is nice. So it's just a lot of it lies in the way we think and our attitude to different situations. And very often, if we can consciously, proactively be aware of where our thinking is going, which direction it's headed, is it headed towards being unhappy? And obviously, as Hinu said, we have to feel our feelings also. It's not like if you're feeling unhappy, we need to quickly say some positive affirmation and jump into happy mode. You can't just jump into happy mode. You have to feel the feelings. And once you have the courage to experience and say, okay, I'm feeling unhappy right now. What can I do about it? And why am I feeling unhappy? Experience it, express it, understand it, and then try and talk yourself into a state of mind where you can gradually become happy or feel better or do something different that can actually bring about a calming sensation within yourself. So in this way, I just pick up this book sometimes just to flip through something that may just grasp my attention. And it's really light and it's very easy. Like something as simple as a smile. Your smile makes other people happy, which in turn makes you happy. So you just smile, Sometimes you feel like, when you're feeling down, they say a lot of the times it's in your physical sensations. If you can just smile, suddenly you feel that sensation within yourself and you can feel slightly happier, especially when you're going through difficult times. Yeah.
So the book takes a lot of scientific evidence for this as well, right?
Yeah.
So for each 100 thing, there's like
there's
study
research. There's research done behind it. So it's not just random. It's based on research. So like little things have big meanings, So tiny things, the tone of your voice, the exact words you use as you go through otherwise ordinary events communicates volumes. So how we speak, even our body language, even the way we express ourselves non-verbally, all of that can have subtle effects on our demeanor, on and on a relationship. Because sometimes at home, when we are in a situation where we are constantly together, and you know, you say that, oh, I'm seeing you 24/7, I need a break. But actually, you don't really need a break. You just need to be able to communicate on a different level. So a lot of this self-reflection and understanding comes through when you are having this time alone at home, right? I mean, when you're on your own in many ways, then these reflections come in handy. They come, they make, they you experience it, and you actually want to try it because it's a journey of self-discovery. So that's it.
I think this is a really helpful one because we all need reminding sometimes, I think, with those small tips and books like this, which just you can pick up and just get those small quotes or tips or something. And as you said at the beginning, just to change our mindset, sometimes what various challenges come to us and we can find ourselves in a negative frame of mind, or, you know, and having such a book, it seems quite handy. Like, you know, I keep a book of quotes just, you know, in my drawer at work, and sometimes it's a handy tip. Or as you say, you may have actually picked up some of the best tips, and actually I've created a Word document, which I just keep on my desktop. And one of them is, smile. Sometimes it's health tips, like actually making sure I've drunk enough fluid in the day, you know, just whatever it may be. But you're right, sometimes we do need those simple reminders and tips and quotes just to bring us back. Like, you know, so just that tip to smile or to look on the positive side when someone is saying something as opposed to the negative.
Yeah, so true. So true that way. Yeah.
So it sounds
we have another book.
Yeah, good.
But,
no, keep them coming.
Yeah. So this is something a little heavy. This book is quite heavy, and it was recommended by my friend. I'm part of a book club, and she suggested this book. It's from 1998. It was written in 1998.
Right, The Light Shall Set You Free.
Yeah, and it talks a lot about everything is energy, and we are innately connected with this sea of energy. So it's a lot to do with thoughts, feeling, words, actions, or are all forms of energy. So what we do, say, feel in each moment comes back to us to create our realities. So energy moves in a circle. So in that sense, what goes around comes around. So there are some universal laws, some sub-laws, but more or less it's about the cause and effect, and it's related to energy. So I'm in the middle of it, and it takes time to grasp it, to understand what is being shared. So there are times that one needs to reflect on the deeper meanings of certain spiritual laws and universal laws. I wouldn't say spiritual, but universal laws, and how we can understand and gain from it as well.
For sure. And I think if we may have already a foundation, we've got some idea, and then different books can hopefully elaborate on that idea. And I think, as you say, sometimes you need that recommendation from someone you trust on a book and taking it forward. Because that's one thing. I think certain books are fine because they just may be fiction, but even with fiction, I mean, it's a good question. How do you choose a book? Because this is one topic, like you said, you know, this book I've just made, The Light Shall Set You Free. And there are many in the field of spirituality or self-help. You know, you go to any bookshop or anything, and there are, you know, 100 books there, which we'll never have a chance to read all of them. And sometimes you find certain books that actually can confuse us with our current mindset, you know, and taking us on a bit of a different journey. So how do you decide which book to read when? It doesn't have to be self-help, but just generally, I mean, sometimes whatever takes your fancy, but do you have, like, you know, like a list, like, you know, this week or this year I want to finish these books, or how does it work? How do you guys do it?
I do it in a way where somebody recommends a book and I'm open to reading a recommended book. Or if I'm just browsing through a bookshop and something just leaps out at me and a title leaps out at me or a cover, then I would read the blurb and see if that really is the kind of book I would like to read. Maybe it's calling out to me for a reason. I look at it as that when I read something, or like when it comes to me at the right time, it is for a reason that I'm supposed to learn from it and understand what it is meant to share, the message from the book. So I look at it in that sense. That's how I pick books. I don't have a list. It's just spontaneous.
And do you read? I mean, you remember to maybe it's similar for you as well.
Similar, but I don't always. The first time I come across a book, even if it interests me, I won't necessarily buy it or invest in it. I usually go away, and if it comes up again, or if I remember it a few days later, it means that maybe it is something that I would actually want to read. Because the thing is, I have a tendency maybe to be impulsive when it comes to books. So I can go into a bookshop just to browse, and then suddenly I'm incredibly interested in something for like 5 minutes, and then I bought it, and then I take it home, and I'm like, I don't know, I think I was interested in it for 5 minutes only, and that's it. So I generally like to just look at it, leave it be, and invest in it, and if it comes up again, and or if I remember it, or if someone recommends it even. So that's my way of doing it. I do save money that way as well.
Yeah, I'm sure actually we all have bookshelves full of, there's always a saying, isn't it? We have a bookshelf full of more books we've not read than we've actually read. But it always sits on the bookshelf. And sometimes, you go, I get a lovely, shelf of books. It looks really impressive. And then someone says, well, have you read all of them? And you tell them honestly, well, not that many, but
that gets awkward.
Yeah. And then you say, I'm going to read it. And then you never get around reading it. And then years pass. And then next thing you know, okay, maybe I'll pick it out now. I mean, there are a couple of books that have been sitting on my bookshelf. And during COVID, I've actually looked at them and read them as well.
I had a couple of cases where I impulsively bought books, and I ended up giving them to friends who really would get a lot more value from those books than I did, or than I was going to. And so I almost feel like through me, the books found a better home. So it's nice to think of it that way, at least.
Yeah, it's something about sharing, isn't it? Rather than just hoarding. I think sometimes we just have this, lovely pristine bookshelf, and actually it's best something to share them and move them around, and that's what books are for, really, and so on. Do you guys read? Another thing, people do read more than one book at a time. Some people are like reading sort of 4 or 5 on the go. Some are just like, I'll do one at a time. So that's one question. The other one is, do you find you're having a particular time of day that you've now set aside, and you've found that routine for something, maybe early morning, lunchtime, or evening? Have you found any tips on that for those who are watching?
So it's usually at night. I like to read something that's very calming, or something. Actually, sometimes I like to memorize some segments of interesting, that really interest me, like some quotes or some empowering message. I like to memorize it before I go to sleep. So it just those are the kind of books I like to read. So if they're related to self-development, self-improvement books. And in the daytime, then I read whenever there's spare time. I mean, I usually have a book with me at the dining table, by my bedside table, at the coffee table. There are books lying around. So I'll just have one available handy around when I have some spare time.
Excellent. And in the moment, I mean, we're still enough time, but I'm mindful of time, and I do know that I would like to explore a bit about writing, because you are, I know you've gone to life coaching, but you've also written at least 11 or 12 books, and you've currently just released a book. So in a moment, I want to explore what it's like to be a writer, because or how does a book take shape, from a writer. But just before that, just this feeling of screens versus books. So would you say that generally you
yes, Kindle.
Yes, Kindle's good, but I mean, I think people who are just used to more, they wouldn't use a book, but they will just go onto a website or watch YouTube or whatever they're on their phones. And do you try and actively not do that? Because I think that's the biggest distraction we find in this day and age, even for our younger children, I've got two young kids, and the school is always saying actually they should be reading half an hour a day. And unfortunately, we've managed that at times, but there's so many other distractions which maybe weren't there even, a decade ago.
Yes, it's true. I mean, screen time, we can't escape technology. We can't escape being on our mobile devices. So we have to learn to balance our life. I mean, with every new development in technology, we learn to balance. We learn to understand that everything in moderation is what is needed. So yes, definitely, it is tempting to just scroll through so many websites and then YouTube links, because there's always a way where you see something more interesting that comes up, and then you want to click on that, and then you want to watch that. So it just goes on and on. So that there is a way to do that, in the sense you are consciously aware of your time, and you say to yourself, or I say to myself, 15 minutes, I'm going to watch this, and then I'm going to stand up and I'm going to go get myself a glass of water. So it breaks that state of being addicted to the screen. I wouldn't say addicted, but sort of like tempted not to get out of my seat. So in that sense, it's a sense of awareness. And of course, with children, it gets a little bit more challenging, but offering them something more interesting to do beyond the screen, it's probably a way you could try and handle that.
I think the physical movement of
Yeah.
moving away from your phone really helps. It helps me as well. I have a timer on my phone. I think most phones now have like a way for you to track how long you've spent on your phone that day, and on individual apps. So I have app timers. So something like Instagram, I put it on like 10 minutes or 15 minutes a day. And it will not let me go on Instagram once I've used up that amount of time. So that's quite good. And I don't have a timer on Audible, on my audiobook app, or on my podcast app. So it does just make it even not having a timer reminds me that it's okay to do these things, to use my phone for these purposes, but having a timer on something makes me think, oh yeah, I need to be a little careful about not falling into that hole. So that really helps me. And I think the thing about a book and a Kindle is that you can't do other things on a book with a book or a Kindle. You can't check the time or, WhatsApp your friend in a book or a Kindle. So you create a bubble for yourself where you can physically put the
listen to music. I mean, I need to have full focus on a book. I can't listen to music as well. So that's something that really takes you in completely into the story. So that way books are really amazing.
Yeah, and they stimulate another part of the brain, because as I said, a film, taking again our Harry Potter example, everything will be there for you. I mean, it's spectacular still, but compared to the picture forming in your own mind,
it's amazing.
And it stimulates other parts of our brain that a film or a program can't, because we're using our imagination, etc. But so coming on to writing then, so how does one write? How do you write a book? Writers are always really enigmatic personalities and always interesting. So Shobha, tell us.
So writing comes from real life situations and experiences, personal experiences, meeting different kinds of people, living in different parts of the world. So all of that collectively, I view a certain situation from my lens of experience, and I put it together and I create a story. But the main thing for me in creating a story has to be the character. The character has to be interesting, has to be vibrant, has to have a dark side, has to be imperfect, has to go through a journey of evolving them into somebody that they wanted to be and they were not before. So and then around it, I create a story. I create situations where they have to overcome obstacles, they have to face themselves, their own fears, different situations come up and affect them. So when I used to write thrillers, and I used to create obviously very dynamic situations like car chases and somebody, shooting at others. And it used to be very dynamic in that sense. Or if I've written a psychological thriller, so it's like mind games also in how in a relationship, how much a person you think but actually you don't know them well enough. They have a certain side that you never really realize, but then there are little clues and then you learn more about them. So for me, it's a lot to do with character development. Writing a book then, so first it would be jotting down notes, creating a structure, a flow. Okay, I want this and this and this to happen in like 5 points, and then expanding that into chapters, adding more characters, creating the story chapter by chapter, and after that rewriting it, because it's not really sculpted properly. There's a lot of polishing and chipping away at unnecessary segments or paragraphs. So it's a lot of writing. One flow is one thing. Rewriting takes a lot of time. You have to go through it over and over again until you know that everything flows correctly, everything links up, there are no loopholes. It's not like I say this man was wearing a red shirt in chapter 1 and in chapter 2 suddenly he has a stain on his blue shirt. Things like that. These small things matter. And of course the language and the style in the dialogue. When a character is speaking, so the dialogue should match his personality type. So then to be able to understand two different personalities just through dialogue is also something I had to learn how to do as well. So distinct, different characteristics about individuals also takes time to create and develop as well. It's a journey, but I've enjoyed it. I enjoy the journey. It's demanding. And I am an impatient personality. I like to do things quickly and get it over with. But with books, when you're writing, you need a lot of patience because you can't just breeze through it, because sometimes you miss important segments where you need to edit, and you can easily miss it because you're distracted or you're in a hurry. So it needs full concentration, needs a lot of time and effort, and a certain kind of mindset, definitely. I'm a very curious person, imaginative, and I guess a lot of that plays into the way you can create a story as well.
For sure. And in terms of even timescale of writing, what have been your timescales? What's sort of the quickest you've managed to produce from start to finish to sort of a longer project? Not that speed is of essence, but just out of interest, how long do these things take?
They take about 2 years to get it to write, to then submit it to publishers, and then they edit it. It takes another 6 to 8 months. So it takes about 2 to 2.5 years.
So from first word to publication.
Yes, from so writing to then the bookshelf, it takes about 2+ years.
Yeah, so it's quite an endeavor, and a lot of respect to authors in that sense. And it's quite different to, again, the modern day. I keep coming back to where people write a blog, literally write it, and within a day, or they just correct it and it's there. So it is, I think, producing a book. We're, in terms of time, please do, you've told us, you have released a book quite recently, actually. Once you could share the title, the copy, the cover with us, and a bit of what it's about.
Yeah, so I'm really happy to share this book, is Self-Esteem in a Selfie World.
Yes.
Reboot, Reflect, Revive. So it's not just about social media and the effects of technology on our mindsets, on our self-esteem, but it's a lot to do with our thinking style and how we have grown up conditioned to be in a certain way, or to be perfectionists or people pleasers, and why that happens, and how we need to understand ourselves to bring some clarity in how we think about ourselves, so we can feel good enough. Because in many ways, the way we feel about ourselves affects the choices and decisions we make in life. So if we constantly have an inner dialogue, an internal dialogue that's saying you're not good enough, don't try and do this, don't do that, you'll fail, you'll feel humiliated, you'll be embarrassed. Constantly we stop ourselves from taking up some new challenges or trying out new things because we feel we're not good enough or we won't be able to do it. But that takes a lot of courage. So in this book, I've shared the latest research, also inspiring stories. I've interviewed a lot of people, as well as coaches, professional mental health professionals, and people who have experienced self-esteem issues and have learned how to address it, deal with it, and pursue their goals in life, and are successful people in as entrepreneurs, as industry leaders, and even in the media, and even many celebrities have struggled with self-esteem issues. And I would say, honestly, while researching, I realized a lot of the way I think also had to be addressed. I had to rethink my way of thinking, so to speak, reboot my thinking style, because I was experiencing certain, what I was writing in the chapter about the inner critic. I am quite critical about the way I do things, or I overanalyze, or I'm hyper vigilant about certain things, which I don't need to be. So I think Kino and I've had lots of conversations about this as well. And
So you wrote it during COVID.
I wrote it during COVID.
It's not just that we were reading, but there was an entire writing project going on.
And I would bounce ideas off Hinu as well, and she would share her thoughts, because with their generation as well, what they're experiencing with technology, all the culture of comparison, the competitive spirit in the workplace, and people not willing to share their vulnerabilities, and there's always this appearance that we have to be strong, we have to look perfect, we have to be always giving our the front that we are okay, but inside you're struggling with things, and there's no one really able to understand what you're struggling with. So it's allowing yourself to be open about what your inner needs are. You need to reflect on that, and then create that awareness, and then be more accepting of who you are as you are, because we're all unique and nobody's really perfect, and we all have vulnerabilities. So if we can actually help each other overcome it, it really makes a difference to a lot of people, and you can feel hopeful about your future. You can try out new things. You can actually lead a life of fulfillment, almost like it's a more enriching life now for me, in the sense, because of the life coaching that's also given me a chance to express myself and to help others. So that's my goal, is to create awareness about self-esteem and how much it is important for people to understand that it can really affect you, and it's important for them to realize what it can lead to, to a better life, to a more hopeful life.
So you look at specific situations like imposter syndrome, or body image issues, or like lots of specific ways in which it comes up in people's lives. So,
even conditioning, how parents have spoken to their children. Maybe they're stingy with praise. Maybe you need to be a little more careful how you speak to your child and not compare them with somebody else, so that they don't grow up with internalizing that conversation, or that what their parents said in childhood. Because obviously children look up to parents. I mean, they look up to them as guides and examples of what they would like to be as they grow older. So if they take in that kind of style of talk when we talk to children, it's really a way that can help them develop their self-esteem, guiding them in the right direction, but encouraging them to try out new things. It's not blanket praise. You don't just blanket praise a child. You encourage them to try out new things. And if they falter, they make a mistake, it's okay. Just teach them, mistakes are part of life. We learn and we develop and we grow from there. So it's all part of the self-esteem. That's our core foundation. If we are grounded in that sense of self, that we are okay inside, then we can face anything outwardly.
Excellent. I think it's really helpful. There's so many themes to unpick there. I'm just looking, I know your friend is here as well, Seema. So in a moment, Seema, if
Hi,
you...
Seema.
So if you're there...
Hi, Shobha. How are you?
Good, good. Nice to see you.
It's good to see you and your daughter. I miss bumping into you in Fusion in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
That's the
Hope to see you
place.
soon.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading your new book.
Thank
I
you.
believe it's very, very inspirational. And how's everything there in Hong Kong? It's safe now. I believe people are getting out and about.
They are, but everyone's still very careful how they get out, wearing their masks, being careful in public places. So yeah,
Are they opening up with China yet or not yet? The borders.
restricted. It's still
Restricted. I know I wanted to visit, but I believe there's a 3-week quarantine
Yes, still in place.
still in place, huh?
Yeah.
It's
I'll
gonna
let
be
you
there.
know when it's okay.
Yes, I believe it's going to be there for a long time.
Hmm.
So I won't be coming home for a while. What to do?
It's lovely to see you here.
It is
I'm sure
lovely
you-
to see, and it's lovely to see your daughter. I've never met you before. It's so nice to see you. Finally.
Yeah.
Excellent. Reunited on Zoom, and Seema, it's good to have you.
Yes, and Seema does some lovely vegetarian dishes cooking. She'll be on.
Okay.
I'm sure you're there next week, right?
Yes.
On the vegan
Yes.
vegetarian.
Please
Yes,
join. Do
I
join.
look forward to that. Yes. Will
Yeah,
do.
I look forward to seeing you next week. And it's wonderful what you've had to share with us. Thank you so much. It's been great seeing you and your daughter.
Thank you,
Thank
Seema.
you.
Thank you for joining us today.
And on that note, give my love to Nirmala as well if you see her.
I will.
Yeah.
Will. Okay.
Okay. Take care. Lovely to see you guys. Thank you so much. Bless
Take care.
you. Bless you.
Bless you.
Excellent. It was good. I'm glad because we could see you were online as well. And Seema is Seema, you're a regular as well on Healing Our Earth,
Yeah.
especially from your cooking and also sort of even spiritual background as well.
Thank you.
But yeah, there were some really good themes there. I think particularly on self-esteem and how it unfolds right from parenting to our own self-confidence, our own inner critic. So many things to unpick then. It sounds like in this book then it's a mix of sort of interviews, self-reflection, etc. Is that sort of the structure of the book then?
Yes, it's a reboot, reflect, revive. So I've divided them in these 3 segments, but they cover like various areas of our lives, in relationships, in the workplace, even Generation Z, Generation X, how they deal with self-esteem issues, children. And I've interviewed psychologists and professionals who've also given their research on these issues. The reason I did that is because I'm not a trained professional. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. And I really needed to interview people who had that expertise to share their knowledge. And what I share today with you is basically from what I've discovered from these experts in their fields. So it really makes a difference to understand what they shared personally, as well as in how I've been able to present it in the book, and in a layperson's easy to understand, relatable language, so that anyone who reads it can feel comforted and to get a lot of understanding from this book as well.
Excellent. Well, look, we've had a journey. We started off by in the middle we went through Harry Potter, right through everything, and an hour is gone. It's I think 10 o'clock at night in Hong Kong now. So I think you'll be sort of well, as you said, evening is your reading time, so maybe be winding down and reading
with our Kindle
and relaxing there. But we've had such an interesting conversation, right from choice of books to sort of different things that have helped during lockdown. I think when Hinu started talking about the book Outrageous Openness, about knowing when the right thing may come in life, facing whatever rejection it may be, actually that may be for the best. Whatever happens for the best. Right down to being a writer as well. And for those to know that writing a book doesn't happen overnight, but the character development, the plot, and to publishing may take 2 or 3 years for many authors. And write down. So this self-esteem book, if it's been released, is actually quite good going for you, because actually being able to release it within if you started just last year, right to publication, I think, is it, and it has been published now, I presume it's.
Yes, it's by Sage Publications. They're academic publishers. So it's already available.
The book is for general audience, not just academics.
Yeah. It's for general audience. So it's.
I'm going to share screen, so I don't know if you can see. So this is actually your home page. I think I can, and those you can see. Here's the book: Reboot, Reflect, and Revive: Self-Esteem in a Selfie World. And here's some of your previous books as well. So excellent. Shobha, Hinu, it's time is gone. We're ready for our next speaker here, Dr. Ranjit, who's with us. Thank you so much for being with us. And once you're part of the Healing Our Earth family, you're always here. You can and do tell people. The session is recorded, so those who can say, well, we were online, they can come back. So those who are watching, you can go back to, especially on YouTube or Facebook, and view it there. So with that, I'd like to know for both of you, maybe just to give us a final word, something to encourage our readers, some inspiring thought maybe about reading or something you've picked up. Please do share with us sort of a parting word.
You share.
Well, I think when you're looking at a screen, take a break. Just try listening to a story or reading one from a book or a Kindle. Try and put yourself in a bubble sometimes, just to get a little bit of a load off from the pressures of daily life, especially during a pandemic. It can really work wonders. It doesn't look like it. It's just a simple paper with words on it, but it really can help. So that would be hopefully one takeaway.
Yeah, and just that books empower you. They can teach you. You can learn so much from it. You can develop as a person, and you can be entertained as well. So do pick up a book, maybe today, right now.
Yes, that book that's been sitting on your shelf gathering dust.
Yes. Just pick it up right now.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to go. I'm looking around at my bookshelf now and seeing. I'm trying to bring something that's sort of to make you. Okay, here we go.
Please.
I'm excited. So here you go. So there's been a cookbook here. Actually, also produced in Hong Kong, I think, called Orm Cooking. So I'll have to start to read some cooking tips.
Okay, good.
I've quickly put it down anyway. So Shobha, Hinu, namaste, and great to have you on.
Namaste, and thank you very
Nice
much.
to be here.
Nice
Meet
to
in
meet
person at some point. Excellent.
All the best.
Good. So look, for those who can see the screen again, we have our next speaker ready. So just before we start, a recap of what we've had so far. So it's our 94th event of Healing Our Earth. And today's theme is a COVID special. So we've just had Shobha and Hinu, Nilani, and those who have just been joining, do go back and have a look. We're had a brilliant 1 hour together talking about various books that have inspired them. And in a moment, our next speaker, Dr. Ranjit Kumar Singh, is with us, and to really explore the theme of working with COVID patients, and having COVID himself as a physician. So Dr. Ranjit, in a moment, will be introducing you and looking forward to talking with you. 4 o'clock UK, so it's 3 o'clock UK time at the moment. In an hour's time, my co-host, Dr. Sheila Dobby, will be taking over and taking us on the next steps. There's a speaker on building your body and immunity. There's a transmission of coronavirus, and also Dr. Pankania will be giving us the latest sort of updates and concepts of COVID. Really interesting speakers coming ahead. And as you can see from the signs, we're on Facebook, on Twitter, on WhatsApp, as well as YouTube. So do have a look at healingourEarth.com, and there is our website. And I'm with you. I'm Dr. Milan Shah. I'm a family physician in London and spend my time sort of working with patients. But being a family doctor is great because you get to see every part of life, and actually do recommend books and reading as well to patients as well. Upcoming sessions, so just to remember, next week we carry every Sunday. Healing Our Earth has been running ever since COVID really started, and next week is our vegan and vegetarian kitchen. We saw Simaji recently. I think she may well be on that session. The 26th, those who are interested in Bollywood, there we are. We've got a screen coming up. So there are our upcoming sessions. You can see on the 19th, we have got the vegan vegetarian kitchen, and you can see the graphics there. Coming up after that is Bollywood on the 26th as well. So those who are budding singers, do come, or at least listen and enjoy. And then the week after, the 3rd of October, you can see it's a motivation, inspirational session, and particularly in line with Mahatma Gandhi Jayanti on the 3rd of October. And a heads up, a marker for your diaries, those who are living in London or even viewing online, 23rd of October, which is a Saturday, mark your date to come along to Trafalgar Square in London. The world famous Diwali in London, one of the first ever Diwali stage shows, is back with a live screen of a stage show, as well as food, vendors and lights on a Saturday evening, which is a Mayor of London event in partnership with DIL, the Diwali in London committee. And there you go, there's the saved date. So do, wherever you are now, put it in your diary now, Saturday, the 23rd of October. Dr. Ranjit, I hope it's in your diary. You may want to come along or at least watch and explore Diwali together. So with that, it's great to have you on. So those, I'd like to just introduce you briefly to our guests here. A warm welcome to Dr. Ranjit Kumar Singh, Dr. Ranjit, who's going to talk a bit about working with COVID patients. Dr. Singh is a respiratory consultant, so chest physician at the Luton and Dunstable University Hospital, which comes under the University of London. Having graduated in India, he worked as a faculty at the Christian Medical College in Vellore in India. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Dr. Singh was working as a frontline doctor, and each day he saw over 20 patients with coronavirus symptoms and a good number of patients who actually did test positive for this. He had to make tough decisions himself, who to send home, who may need to be admitted to the ward, and who actually may need to be admitted to the intensive care unit, to the ITU. Dr. Singh himself actually got succumbed to COVID as well and got infected. And in fact, his chest x-ray apparently showed a complete whiteout, and he required oxygen treatment for a good 1 month and lost a lot of weight. Not a good way to lose weight, but unless it lost nearly 2 or 3 stones, 14 kilograms. He had all the symptoms such as lack of smell and high fever, but thankfully you're with us and fully recovered, continues to work with the same positive spirit while seeing patients who are still corona positive. So a namaste to you, Dr. Ranjit, and a warm welcome.
Namaste, Dr. Shah, and namaste on all the team member of the Healing of Our Earth, especially Mr. Neil, who invited me to talk something about live with the COVID patients.
Excellent, yes, and we do, and I think we'll have another guest, Nabanita Das, coming on later on just to share some thoughts as well. So a namaste to you as well, Nabanita. I know you at the moment, you're a yoga teacher yourself and also going through some COVID symptoms. But yeah, so namaste to you.
Global namaste to you, Milenji and Dr. Ranjit. Global namaste to Healing Our Earth team.
Excellent, good. So yeah, do join us, and if you've got any questions as we go along, do join. We are very much looking forward to our next sort of, we've got now next sort of just under an hour together. So what would you like to share with us, Dr. Ranjit?
First of all, I would like to tell you, we should not fear with the COVID infection. The reason behind, I have been seeing since more than 1.5 years, and those who are vaccinated with both the shots, they should live with the causes but happily. And in my experience in 1.5 years and I'm working with the COVID patient. Most of the time my patients are COVID in the ward as well as the follow-up in the clinic. What I noticed, majority of the patients, those who comes with the vaccinations, they do much better. They go home very fully recovered. And who is coming? Those who didn't receive the vaccination. Interesting thing, even those who had infection, severe infection, with a lot of X-ray changes and all the symptoms, they recover fully. So that's a good news for the patients and for the community.
Excuse me, I was muted. Excellent. So that's a good news already, is that actually those who are vaccinated, so to have less fear. I mean, obviously still practice your safe washing of hands, social distancing, wearing a mask where appropriate, etc. But to have some confidence that from your experience as a frontline doctor, and I can confirm that as well, being a family doctor, that certainly those who have had the vaccine and then got COVID seem to have much milder symptoms or recover. So what are you seeing then on a daily basis? You are a respiratory consultant. So for those who are watching, this is a chest consultant. What are your daily duties? Do you work mainly on the ward, or are you clinic-based, or do you do a mixture of both?
As a respiratory consultant, my job is divided in different parts. Like I see the ITU patients, those who severely ill COVID patients. Sometimes my job is seeing the ward patients, those who are COVID infected patients with a high oxygen requirement. And my job to follow up those patients who already been discharged from the hospital. And so it's a multiple job at the different levels. Sometimes I have to supervise my juniors, like my registrars, as well as I have to do the clinic independently, where I mostly follow the COVID patients.
Excellent. And so, so tell us a bit more then. What have you been finding? What have you been seeing on the wards, or even following up other patients? Specifically, obviously, your interest is in the lungs. We know COVID is a multifactorial condition affecting many different areas of life, whether it be tiredness, etc. Those with long COVID as well. But what do you see, maybe in particular with breathing and lungs? What have you noticed?
What we see right now, like since a few years, mostly we see nowadays, as compared to the nowadays, and we see the patient who comes without those who didn't take the vaccine in the past. So they are very young people, like in the age of 30, 25, 40s. In that age, they come with the severe infection. And sometimes they require very high oxygen requirements. Sometimes they go onto the machine or on the ventilator. So we feel, why not? We ask the questions, why not you receive? So some people, they have own belief, so they don't take. And what we see, even those who have severe changes into the X-ray, even those changes goes with the time. So right now we are doing some research, and we are trying to follow up by doing the CT scan and the lung function test. And what my observation and my team observation, majority of the patients don't require any treatment for the long term. Even the long COVID syndrome symptoms disappear within few months. So that's a good news. And other thing, I'm seeing the new trend nowadays since last few months. Even those who receive the vaccinations, they are coming, but their symptoms are very less. They don't require too much oxygen. They don't go into the ITU. Even if they go into the ITU, they recover fast. So that's a good news. Those who are taking the vaccination, they're recovering fast. And those who are not taking vaccination, and those who didn't receive the vaccination, they're coming with a severe infection. That's a sad part.
So that's, I think, a key take-home message, and it's an encouragement. I think most hopefully are watching and have got access to a vaccine, depending where you are in the world. I know there's obviously challenges, but there is another direct reason. We can see it here that a doctor from a hospital is saying that that the condition is less severe. So what does, we've sometimes we've learned about COVID so much that we almost forget sometimes, but what does COVID then do to the lungs? You're a chest physician, you've seen people's x-rays. What happens to the lungs? Why do people find it hard to breathe? What is this whiteout of the lungs? Is it that there's lots of liquid in the lungs, or how does COVID affect the lungs?
It's a very interesting question you ask in this forum. What happened when the patient has a lung infection with the COVID, where the gas exchange happens, that part get filled with the fluids and their gas exchange get hampered. That's the reason their oxygen requirement goes high. So we called ARDS symptoms like acute respiratory distress syndrome, like X-ray changes develop, and they have a difficulty in passing the oxygen. To overcome this oxygenation, we give different form of the oxygen. Sometimes we give with the mask, sometimes required we give with the high flow oxygen, means requirement is very high, more than around the 60 liter. Even when they don't overcome by that one, then we give the mask, we call the CPAP, means the positive pressure we give a try to bypass the thickened part of where the gas exchange happen. Even that sometimes fail, and we feel this patient will come out. We put on the machine with the ventilator. To prevent all these things, we ask the patient to sleep on their tummy. So that's where we ask my patients to improve their oxygenation. So basically COVID, it goes with the time. Basically, it's a viral disease. It goes with the time. And majority of the patient is buying the time. So those who are buying the time very quickly, they recover faster and they goes to the home. But those who have a secondary infection by the bacteria, on top of that, their chest infection with the COVID, they take long time. So my observation, those who have diabetes mellitus, means high blood sugar, and those who are really obese, they take long time to recover. So it's a very important thing. Keeping yourself fit is most important to avoid the COVID infection and controlling your blood sugar.
For sure. So I think, keeping the body fit. And I think hopefully, again, giving a plug for Healing Our Earth, there have been plenty of sessions on, exercise, diet and fitness. And hopefully different people are doing different things at home to keep your diet and everything well. So that is good. I've just got my son who's popped into the room. Who, you okay?
Yeah.
Good. So, so looking forward then, in terms of then, the chest and the management itself, you've talked about oxygen as well. What's happening in terms of other hospital treatment? I mean, where people needing antibiotics or antivirals or anything. What has been the mainstay of treatment at the moment?
See, what our observations in last 1.5 years, majority of the patients, those who required the oxygen, and we look the clotting factor, we call the D dimer. If the D dimer is very high, sometimes they develop the clot. So we are always looking for the D dimer. If D dimer is very high, then we're trying to looking for the clot by doing the special CT, we call the CT angiogram. And if the patient has a clot, we give some anti-clotting medication. Moreover, so who needs other treatment apart from antibiotics and immunosuppressant? We give a drug called tocilizumab. Basically, it's a monoclonal antibodies. So generally, our observation, those who require high oxygen, means around more than 15 liters, and those who have a high CRP value, it's a marker of inflammation. Generally, we try to give them to tocilizumab, which is a very effective drug. And in my observation, really, tocilizumab is a wonderful drug, and patients are getting better. We are trying, by giving that medicine, patients generally don't go to the ITU or HTU. Whatever, generally we give antibiotic. Antibiotic we just give for few reasons, to prevent secondary infection. However, we know it's a viral disease, generally it's not required, but we give because of the thinking when the patient in the hospital, they might develop secondary bacterial infection. To prevent it, we give antibiotics. We know this disease is a viral because a lot of chemicals going inside the body. So we give some immunosuppressant drug we call corticosteroid, we call dexamethasone. So these drugs we generally give only when the patient required oxygen. If the patient doesn't require oxygen, we don't give dexamethasone, we don't give tocilizumab. Just we give symptomatic treatments like paracetamol, hydration. The important things, what we recommend here when my patient comes to the hospital, we give saline nebulization, and saline, what it does, it try to remove the secretions from the where the gas exchange happen. Moreover, we have some other chemical we called NAC. Basically, it's acetylcysteine. It's basically break the bond of the thicker part of the mucus, and body try to easy to bring it out. So two things is very important. One is saline nebulization, and we ask the patient to encourage to drink plenty of water, so it's easy to come in the phlegm, whatever inside there. So these are the treatment protocol we follow, and we try patients should not go to the IC or HTU or ITU. We try to ask them to sleep on the tummy. So asking by sleeping on the tummy, their oxygen requirement goes down. So that's a good part, and that way we treat in the ward majority of the time these patients.
Yeah, really helpful to know, because I think that's right. The last time I was on, actually, we did an interview with Sanjeev, who had long COVID, and he talked also about sleeping on the tummy. But helpful to know some of the treatments, particularly that the more intensive treatments are those really who do require high oxygen requirements, etc. And otherwise, it's a lot more supportive treatment that we're giving. Yes, if they're in hospital, you might also give an antibiotic, where again, in primary care, because again, when we first started COVID, I think in general practice, family physicians would be giving antibiotics, etc. But in fact, sometimes that can also create antibiotic resistance or dampening down. So very much for community related COVID, those who are watching, we would, why is your GP just saying X, Y, and Z? Is actually that the best treatment actually is rest, fluid, paracetamol. Interesting, you mentioned the saline nebulization. So that's another thing. I think it's really important to break up that mucus. So people who are, again, if you're at home, just taking in steam or nasal, like a nasal saltwater spray. From a yoga technique, those will know the neti pot, the neti, which this saline just goes in and clears out the nose. These are really important things that can help. But I appreciate the nebules are more important because actually they go into the chest as opposed to just the nose. That's excellent. I mean, that's really helpful to know and how you might be managing. And you've told us also the people who are coming in may be slightly younger with more severe COVID, those who've been unvaccinated, those in their 30s or 40s. Certainly, being a GP, I've seen some of my elderly patients who've obviously had both their vaccines, but getting COVID. So I've got quite a few at the moment. I've got about a few 70-year-olds, one 85-year-old, and generally they're doing quite well. I know that pre-vaccine, if they were to get COVID, this would be a very serious situation. But these patients are basically at home, and we're managing them in the community.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So let's move on then. Let's talk a bit about, and I'm going to bring Nabanita Das in at the moment as well, because I know you're also going through COVID, Nabanita. And but Dr. Ranjit, you said you developed COVID yourself, but we've got Nabanita now actually with us. Nabanita, how are you feeling? I understand you've actually currently undergoing some symptoms and COVID illness.
I started getting the symptoms of dry cough and tongue thickness actually, but I didn't lose taste at all. But the tongue was very thick and I felt like I had to clear it off quite often. But then because I'm double vaccinated and I think proudly I can say that my lungs are quite strong because I kept checking my oxygen level and it always stayed close to 97, 98, 99. So I'm able to quite manage pretty much at home, just taking steam and taking herbal medicine and doing lung exercises. So my symptoms are almost gone. It's just that probably when the virus cannot make its way through the lungs down there, it kind of goes down to the muscle level. So the energy level is quite low, which I can realize when I'm trying to do some kind of movement. I just don't have the energy. So it's all about, for me now, regaining the energy, getting back to normal. But literally, there's no critical symptom now.
Excellent. And yes, I think that fatigue that people feel can be quite overwhelming actually at times. And people say, look, they just really can't do much in the day. Where are you on your COVID journey? When did you test positive, or how many days?
I tested positive on 6th, this Monday.
Okay, so you're about maybe day 6 or day 7. So your first...
I think I'm on day 8. So day 8. Symptoms started on 4th, and this is 12th. Yeah, so 9th.
So we wish you very well on behalf of everyone for Healing Our Earth, and we give your hands of prayers to you and give all our prayers. But do stay online because I want to explore with you as well, with your background in yoga, of how that's helped. Well, but coming then actually while Navneeta's on, Dr. Ranjit, the week 2 of COVID. So people have said that, actually the first week can be quite intensive, but sometimes the secondary infections, the immune system becomes more weakened in the second week. What have you noticed in the hospital or patients coming in? When are they coming in? Are they coming in during the early COVID, like week 1 or week 2, or what are the trends you're seeing at the moment?
What we see, majority of the patients, they come late in the hospital because they feel they are doing good at home. And slowly they started feeling short of breath, and the majority of the symptoms, they have a shortness of breath. And then when they come to the A&E and where they do the X-ray chest and their oxygen requirement goes down, so those we try to bring inside the hospital. So they come late generally, and we only admit those who required oxygen. If they are not requiring oxygen, then we don't admit into the hospital.
I think so, yeah, and that's the requirement. So I think, when we introduced you, you had to obviously make some very strong decisions back, I think certainly in early COVID, when there was no vaccine, it was a largely unknown illness. And you developed COVID yourself. So tell us a bit what happened there.
What happened in the month of March, April last year, when the COVID came, and I was the main consultant who look after the COVID patients. So, and initial period of time, everybody want to escape from the COVID because they don't want to get infected. And I know I'm a senior person, I'm a consultant, so I have to look after my junior as a team. And so that time I get exposure, and that time PP kit was not available, and you have a lot of patients coming, and you're exposed with you have to do the blood gases to look for how much oxygen, which patient need to go to the ITU, which patient need to go to the STU. So you have to decide everything. Oxygen was, in the supply of the oxygen was going down in the hospital. So you have to be main person in the ward where you have to make decisions. And that time I get infected with the COVID, and initially I was thinking I will recover. And so few days I took time, and I was staying in the home, and I was getting high-grade fevers. I was thinking, what happened? And that time people were not aware of that, how long this fever is going to last, and what type of that, and how much temperature is going to last. Means the temperature was coming around 40 degrees centigrade, 41. Really, it was very hard, despite taking paracetamol, and temperature was not coming down. Then my wife asked me, why not you're going to see in the hospital? And my CD asked me, please come and we will do your blood test and X-ray. When I reached to the hospital, that time my oxygen was around 83, 84% on room air. And my X-ray was totally wiped out. And I was thinking, because of fever, I'm feeling sort of breath. So it's very difficult to judge either you have a oxygen supply, or because of weakness, you're feeling sort of breath. And when they did the CT scan, they found my whole CT scan was white. And then they asked me to admit. And when they admitted in the hospital, I was on the oxygen for a long time. And then, the one thing I noted, which is most important, I want to tell. This disease is a mindset game. If you have a strong mind, then you will come out easily. If you just timid, then body takes own time to heal, and it will go in different way. Suppose because immune system basically how you react to the situations, like a stress. If you are very bored, you are thinking, I'm going to do better. So I was always reinforcing myself. I was always saying, whenever the consultant comes to see me, well, I'm fine, I want to go home. Even my oxygen was, at that time I was on oxygen. As I always saying, and I try to do more exercise, even in the hospital, try to move, try to lie down on the tummy. And that way I recovered. When I came from the hospital, even my oxygen was that time around 88, 89. I took premature decision to come to the home. The reason behind, I was thinking those who are going on the machine, they don't come out. And this disease is basically, no one is knowing what will happen. So I came to the home, and I was keep doing nebulization myself, keep exercising, positive thinking, slowly started walking. And that way I recovered. And within 1 month, and after 1.5 months, I joined work again. And once you are at workplace, then you have to see COVID, because the whole hospital that time was COVID. So that's my story. And after 3 months, I did my X-ray. 90% my X-ray was all right. And now I'm 100% all right. So what I noted, how much you're positive, which is most important.
For sure, definitely. As you said, sometimes it is a mind game as well, and having that positive mindset for sure will help. And at that time, to dig deep in your own inner reserves as well. I guess, and having your medical background, was that without a doubt would have been a benefit in some sense. You could have some confidence to say, look, I'm going to go home and do this from home. At other times, I guess, so were you admitted into your own hospital? Were you an inpatient in your own?
Yeah. And where I used to see the patient, I'm telling you a very interesting thing. Even I didn't get the bed in my same ward where I used to see the patient. So they kept me into the isolation.
Yes.
And where sometimes they come to see me, I feel it's better I should be staying into my room rather than I'm staying in the hospital.
Yes, I think that's, I can imagine actually that was actually an inspiration thing. I'm in the same hospital. I think I better go home. But no, it's a really important thing of you doing your own strength and then actually going back and starting to work as well. What was your mind feeling? Yes, you've mentioned the positives, but there were times, I guess, when you would have felt, what's going to happen? Were there fears, were there anxieties, or not so much?
I told my daughter, maybe I will not survive because my oxygen requirement was going high and I was feeling short of breath. And sometime, because every day I used to see a lot of death, when I was in the ward, and no one is coming out, especially young people don't come out. So I feel might be this is the hard time for me. And sometimes you feel depressed because you don't know which way you will go because you don't have any medicine.
But as you say, through your mindset and maybe through your breathing and various things you've done, you came out the other side. And in fact, you started working again. And maybe actually with your recent COVID illness at that time, you would have had some antibodies and been protected potentially.
Yeah, and after that, that time vaccination was not available. So whatever I had antibodies, that antibodies was protecting me that time. And again, I have to work with the same patients, same type of patient. So really, it's hard. Always feel maybe again I will get infected. You are not aware of that. What will happen? And people are not willing to come to the hospital. Even I'm talking to the consultant and colleagues, they're thinking better should be isolated at home. And then I was thinking, like I'm a soldier. Suppose if I withdraw myself, this is not the right time to withdraw yourself. Let's go and let's see what will happen. So you can see now, and I'm fine.
Yeah, of course. And that we all felt, I think, as healthcare workers, that we wanted to be there somehow in the front line in whichever way we were working. But it was different. I know that it's different for each doctor or healthcare nurse or healthcare worker. Some may have very vulnerable people at home or have underlying conditions themselves. And there were some medics who just felt they couldn't be on the front line at that time. And so it went through a lot of debates, ethical dilemmas as well, of what to do. And I guess you could also empathize and understand with patients because you've been through it yourself. You could really then know what it's like, really. So in one sense, that was in your favor.
Yes, that's true.
Good. Okay. Look, let's carry on our journey then. We're still talking then about sort of COVID recovery, which you've done, and the work you're doing now on the wards. You've mentioned sort of following up patients then who have had COVID. What would you do then? I presume they'd be at home. You'd give them a phone call or you'd call them in. What kind of things are you then checking, maybe 1 month or 2 months down the line?
See, we have set up questionnaires where we ask about different like fatigue, hair fall, weakness, palpitation, shortness of breath. So we have a question, we ask all these questionnaires, and then we do certain things like CT scan. I do the HRCT to look for how much residual infection is there. I try to do the lung function test, including the diffusion capacity, gas transfer, and that way we follow. Post discharge, we try to call the patient in 6 to 8 weeks time, and in 6 to 8 weeks time, when patient comes to us, we do the X-ray chest and once he arrives in the outpatient clinic, and then I do the CT scan. Again, I call it in 3 months time, where I see the lung function test as well as the CT scan.
Good. So there's some sort of questionnaire and protocol as well. So how does it decide then who, because I'm sure people will be watching saying, well, I had COVID, I only had a chest X-ray. Why did I not have a CT scan? And as you say, these are a CT chest, which can be either low or HRCT, which is a high resolution. And even as a family doctor, I have some of my patients, some have had these CT scans or in-depth investigations, others haven't. So what are the criteria? What makes us decide one or the other?
It's a very difficult question, to whom to decide, any whom to do CT scan. First of all, we see those who have some residual changes in the X-ray after 3 months time, and those who feel still short of breath. And these patients, generally, I do the CT scan and lung function test. Some patients complain about palpitation. We ask to do the echocardiogram and the ECG as well as, because we're trying to looking for any myocardial, like heart changes because of the COVID infection.
Yes, yeah.
And majority of the patient, in my experience in 1.5 year, they have some mind game. Basically, patients get better, but they have fearness. And sometimes I try to avoid not to do the CT scan, but they want to do it. And when they want to do it, and then as a consultant, you feel really it's worth doing because X-ray doesn't look any bad, So sometimes it's a dilemma, either you need or not to do, And but definitely those who have some changes, like I have few patients, still they have some changes. I have to start some treatment again, like corticosteroid, and really because you don't have any treatment apart from the corticosteroid in patient of COVID like changes into the CT scan. So our criteria is not any very fixed, but definitely those who have X-ray changes and shortness of breath, we do the lung function test and the CT scan.
Excellent, yeah, no, and I'm totally with you. It's an everyday question of myself, being a GP, a family doctor, of patients who want further investigations for any condition, let alone COVID. I see a little bit of COVID, but I see lots of other things, and it's what the mindset is, what we're looking for, etc., and how long it takes to recover. And it's a really interesting challenge, even as doctors, of knowing who to investigate, how further. Even before COVID, how well the body was before, etc. So it really is, and I think we're seeing, because it's quite a multifactorial condition. It affects, as you say, can affect the heart or the breathing or energy levels, and all these tests we've seen so far. They can give us an indication, but it's looking at the whole global functioning of a person as well. So I think that's what made it a bit more of a challenge for those, even as medics looking at COVID. There's no easy answer, there's not sort of a set, you can look at guidelines and protocols. But and again, I think that's where holistic medicine can help really. And certainly if you just look at it in one, because yes, you're a chest physician, so your interest or your is looking at the lungs particularly, but I think you've realized that it's so widespread. And being a GP, I'll see people who say, well, my memory is gone, my memory is not the same since I've had COVID. And well, how do we work with that, or their taste, etc. So it is interesting times. But so bringing back our patient, we've got a live patient here. Navanita, you are our patient. So you've just put on the chat actually with us that you said, look, you are day 8 of COVID, and you just asked a question, which actually we'll post to Dr. Ranjit as well, that, should you still be monitoring your oxygen levels? So Dr. Ranjit, what would you say to that, to Nabanita? She's I presume you've got a pulse oximeter. Those who are at home, I'm sure now you're all aware. Maybe 2 years ago, no one knew what this machine was, but now it's very popular. It's called a pulse oximeter, or an oxygen saturation probe, which I can see Nabanita is holding in her hand. So your question was, how should you still be checking your oxygen? What, Dr. Ranjit, what would you say to her for that?
One thing I'll tell you, it's very important to know, because there was one paper last month. Pulse oximeters should be standardized. So if you're buying the pulse oximeter, you don't know which company, how much battery is there, who made it, but just we are buying the machine and we are knowing this machine is very good. Many people have a different idea to how to measure. Suppose if you're measuring the pulse oximeter just like putting in a fingers, index finger, you're seeing You're seeing one reading, you're saying reading is 92, suppose.
Yeah.
Then you get panic, what to do next. But this reading is not accurate because you just put it in your finger and you're thinking my oxygen level is low. So how to measure? Lie down on your bed, keep your hand on your chest, take deep breath, wait for 5 minutes, take maximum reading, which is the best. That means that is your oxygen level. When to come to the hospital? It's a very important things to know. See what happened in the hospital, we change the oxygen requirement. Suppose patient is very big, those who have a COPD, those who have a high BMI, we try to bring the oxygen level lower side acceptable level. We are not giving everybody 94 and above oxygen. Even your oxygen level is 94, I'm happy you stay at home because this disease, I'm not going to do anything, just buying the time. Even in the hospital, I'm buying the time. I'll ask you, lie down on the tummy and stay, keep hydrated yourself. I don't have any magic drugs which can cure you one day and you will go back to home. So best way, be positive. Whenever you're taking the reading, keep your hands on your chest, wait for 5 minutes, take deep breath inside, and then take your pulse oximeter. Okay, how much is the best reading for you? So that's why I recommend, and it's a guideline as well as by the NHS, okay, how to measure the oxygen level. And majority of the patients, they have a cough. We ask to give honey. Honey is very simple medicine, and it has immunomodulatory effects. It has anti-inflammatory effects. It's a soothing effect. So honey is a very good treatment for coughing. We don't prescribe any medication except the honey. And even Dr. Sai is agreed with my point because he might be giving the same things to every patient because this cough is a viral cough. It will go with the time. We can't do anything for that cough,
Okay.
Yes.
After at the 8th day, I still feel bit of cough lingering kind of around the throat area.
So the best way we ask to do the gargle, with the saline gargle, some warm water, just drink. Even our departmental guideline, we ask to drink some warm all the time. Don't take cold water. So that's the get soothing effect. See, it doesn't make any difference, but it gives you soothing effects. So just do the warm water, which will really it's helpful. And
what should be the visible symptom that I have to go to hospital? Because I have not gone to hospital. I've just stayed home isolated.
Look, oxygen level. If oxygen level really is going downside, then this is the right time to go to. Means less than 94 is coming. Really, then you have to go. You feel short of breath. Your fever is not coming down. So these are the criteria generally we ask to come to the hospital, and that time we do the blood. Even the blood we see and we look, the count is high. We give antibiotic for 5 days because we are thinking maybe secondary infection you are developing. Even you have viral fever, but sometimes you get the top of that and some bacterial infection. So antibiotic required sometimes.
Any suggestions for bringing up the energy level? Because that's the only thing I'm feeling at the moment. Nothing much actually.
The most important, I feel, you should drink plenty of water, which is the very important. What happens whenever we tired, we lose insensible loss of water. That way we feel weakness. In the UK, temperatures goes up and down, sometimes cold, sometimes hot. So we don't know how much we are losing the fluid, and which is we are not replacing. That way we feel more weak and tiredness, and we are blaming to the disease as well as. So drink plenty of water, positive thoughts, eat whatever you're eating. That's way to we recommend. Sometimes we recommend vitamin C and vitamin D, but here everybody takes vitamin C and B complex, which is important for everybody.
Sure. Thank you.
Certainly, yeah, I think keeping up your sort of vitamin levels as well, sort of vitamin D. I know there have been some studies now working that vitamin D is helping with immunity for sure. Maybe not as a treatment, but keeping up your levels and keeping yourself going really, and then we'd be supporting you. So to answer your question, I think it's still be worth checking your oxygen levels on and off for a bit. In our community settings, we do something called oximetry at home. So which means that we are following up certain COVID patients. And actually what I do as a practice, we send them a text message and they text us back with their oxygen levels, with how they're feeling, their temperature. So all of our at-risk patients, so currently we have around, in my practice, maybe 5 or 6 patients on that pathway. And we expect them to text us back at least 3 or 4 times a week. And we ask them to check their oxygen at least every day. But Dr. Ranjit is completely correct. The thing with these meters now, you buy them online or wherever, people are checking them in different ways. Are they calibrated or not? So it can be, sometimes it can give you false high readings. You know, it's great, I'm 98, but in fact, it may not be quite. Not to scare anyone, I think it's a useful tool, but to know everything, it's just a relative reading. And again, as doctors, as people, we love numbers. We love something we can tell, right? It's 94, 95 or 93, and that's how you got to do it. But we know this is just one piece of a jigsaw, and it's to look at the global picture. Otherwise, I think, you know, especially as doctors, we love number. We love, you know, want to know if it's this, then we do this and so on, because then we can be told. But actually, when it's a grey area, and that's actually why you know, I can put my hand up as a GP and say it's one thing, but our real skill is as GPs is that we are very good at dealing with uncertainty, very good at dealing with grey areas. That's why I do 7 days a week, is never deal. No one ever comes to the GP with any sense of certainty. They come with lots of vague symptoms, and it's our job as a family doctor to go through that and work out what you know, how to reassure. Nabila, you asked another question afterwards. You said, will you have some, you know, later complications? You know,
I mean, which is not quite evident at the moment. Will there be anything hidden at all, or we just need to be vigilant? Any kind of intuition, where our intuitive mind has to be switched on? Like, is there anything like that? Like, suppose I come out of isolation, my isolation is ending on Tuesday. After that, also, is there any possibility that any complication might develop later on?
Generally not, you know, majority of the patients, they don't go with any complications. Sometimes they feel tired. It will last for maybe a month, but it will gradually go. So no need to get panic for that.
Okay.
And it's positive thought is the most important, and this is the ultimate treatment.
Sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I say, look, the mind plays, and please do go back to Healing Our Earth. There was a beautiful talk. I was there on our theme of Ayurveda, and we actually had a physician who's also a Western physician, Dr. Nicolaus, and he spoke about the immune system and how our mind has a role in the immune system as well. And really interesting topics there, but keeping yourself essentially going and going strong like that. But yes, you know, 2 or 3 weeks down the line, there may still be fatigue. We get people with maybe a few taste or smell changes, maybe some headaches. Again, talking about research papers, there've been, you know, there's this concept of post-COVID syndrome or long COVID, which definitely exists. But the paper also showed, it was actually a Lancet paper, which showed that in fact, prior to this, people who've had influenza or flu have probably also had like a post-viral syndrome, but we've never really understood it. You know, we've just said, oh, you're a bit tired or whatever. But actually, throughout many years, people have had a post-viral syndrome, but we've never really given it a label before. Now we're calling it long COVID or post-COVID, but in fact, even with other viral illnesses, not just COVID, people sometimes do take longer to recover. Not always, but certainly people with a very bad, for example, had a real influenza, a proper flu, may take them many months actually to fully recover. So it's a really interesting, you know, research that's going on as well. But the mindset.
I think previously we didn't bother much because it was not as infectious as COVID. So I did have quite a few times viral infection, and it did take a toll on me. Was not able to, you know, do things in normal way for quite a few weeks. But we didn't bother because it was not COVID,
Yes.
as you have mentioned.
Yes, and so it's the more severity, I think, of the people getting it at this time as well. So and we're coming almost, we've got the last few minutes, and Navanita, before you sign off, or just maybe we'll come back to Dr. Ranjit as well. So look, you said you're a yoga teacher as well. So
Yes.
Tell us a bit about, you said, you know, and you do, I can see from your face, from your volume of your voice, you sound like actually quite a fit and healthy person. So how has yoga helped you, or what have you done in that sense?
I mean, because I do regular breathing exercises, and we do a package of 4 to 5 breathing exercises. And especially there is one which is quite viral at the moment is called bumblebee sounds, which is kind of like we close our ears and then deep long breathe in. As we breathe out, we make a gentle humming sound, and it's medically proven that the frequency that we create through that breathing exercise actually helps to, kill the virus or bacteria in the nasal passage. Because most of the times, I'm not a medical person, correct me if I'm not saying anything in medical terms, but it does linger around in the nasal passage for around 2 to 3 days. And by regularly practicing, and it's a prevention and cure as well, so I practice that regularly. And the moment, anyway, that's part of, I teach every day, so that's part of my routine. And the moment I felt that yes, something has gone in, I've started practicing that even more religiously, more number of times than I would normally do. And of course, all my breathing exercises like Bhastrika, Kapalbhati probably you can't do very fast when you have got the virus because it makes you really exhausted. But if you can do all 4 pranayams, I think that itself. And I'm quite a great believer of Ayurvedic medicines, and I take Patanjali herbal medicines. The moment I kind of felt that I've got it, I've started taking the coronil. I'm not promoting or doing anything, but that's showing what I have taken. I don't know, with my virtual screen on, it's quite tricky. It's coronil and swasahari, which also helped me to kind of control the symptoms immediately because of the ingredients. That's what I want to promote, the giloy and the tulsi. They are the key ingredients which kind of helped me. Immediately, I could feel the difference. So I would say my symptom was almost down by 3rd day. It's the tiredness and the exhausting feeling, that is what is still there. So the breathing exercise, I never stopped, even when I felt the symptoms have already started coming in me. So which I think has helped me to keep the oxygen level okay. And I didn't feel any shortness of breath. My cough didn't increase. As I said, the 3rd day itself, I didn't feel that I have any cough or any heaviness or any mucus. Nothing was there by 3rd day itself.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think there's a huge role to be played for sort of just generally good breathing. And certainly Dr. Ranjit would say, I'm sure you've got a respiratory physiotherapist as part of your team, but certainly that's some of my patients that need sort of long COVID support. A lot of them, the best help they've had is more than from doctors, actually has been from a respiratory physiotherapist, someone who's actually helped them to expand their lungs better, to help with their breathing. Has been quite helpful. So I think with your own breathing techniques, I'm sure, as you say, whichever ones you're doing, a Kapalabhati, I presume the bumblebee is Brahma, I presume it's called Brahmari.
Brahmari.
Yes, that's right. So I remember back in my day when I was an undergraduate, I actually did some research on the Brahmari technique for bronchial asthma, in fact. So it was interesting to see that at that time there's certain theories between what we call the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and how that involves with bronchoconstriction. And some of these yoga techniques can help to try and find that right balance. So it's really interesting times. But I think for those who are watching, I think the key take-home message is learning how to breathe deeper, slowly, and lots of online resources. Again, even on Healing Our Earth, if you do go back on some of the sessions, we had yoga teachers coming on talking about just how to breathe properly. And the last session that I did on COVID, in fact, with Sanjeev, who had had long COVID, he taught himself a very simple technique of just simply deep breathing in, counting for 3, exhaling and counting for 3. And he was doing this just with lots of lay people just to help them through getting their breathing back.
Absolutely.
So yeah, look, time has flown. I think I said time flies when you're having fun. But back to Dr. Ranjit and some sort of final comments really of what you found, what's going on. I presume you'll be back at work again tomorrow. And
yeah, so one thing I'll tell you, very interesting thing, because this disease has a disease of the alveoli, means airways disease, not airway, it's a disease of the alveoli where the gas exchange happen. So yoga, a little bit, because not a secretions coming easily. So chest physio doesn't work too much in this disease. So our chest physios are saying, we can't do it in this disease. That's the reason hydration has a main role.
Okay, yeah.
And other things I noted, breathing expression is a passive process. To make an active process, I ask my patient to balloon it, means blow. So when you're ballooning, then you are trying to make your alveoli bigger, and then it will be whatever secretions is there, it try to come out. And I promote playing the flute. If you play the flute, so you're making you're breathing into the active process. So that way you're prolonging your breathing, and then your breathing is much better.
Excellent. So good. The take-home message is everyone. I hope Healing Our Earth team are watching. I think our next session should be all on music, developing music skills, and playing a flute. I like that. Would be good. But certainly blowing a balloon is a good technique. And I like your point. Yes, that's right. So I think the physiotherapists probably on the ward feel they can do very little. But interestingly, certainly the outpatient physios have been helping. So really interesting points. So it's really, really good. So look, time has flown. I think we began, Dr. by you saying, just to recap what you've been saying at the beginning, people are still coming in with COVID, but you're noticing that actually people who have been unvaccinated seem to be coming on with a lot more significant illnesses and having to have higher oxygen requirements. People who are double vaccinated still may be getting COVID, but certainly recovering much quicker. We explored what you do as a respiratory physician, whether it be on the ward or following patients up, and your own experience of obviously developing COVID very early on last year and having to be admitted. But then I think you mentioned, and a lot of times you've mentioned that positive mindset of wanting to recover, wanting to get better, and having that regularity, and how you recovered and you went back to work. And then we actually had a live patient here, and we, on behalf of everyone, we wish you well, Navanitha. I hope you continue to improve well. And as you say, look, this is your week 2 of COVID, which we hope that you will, that you'll just fly through and you'll continue teaching. And I think that the message of fluids has really come up a lot of time, drinking enough water. So everyone, as you're watching, please do. I think the other thing people don't realize, actually looking at a screen is actually quite dehydrating as well. So actually they say for every hour or two, you should be drinking at least sort of, half a liter if you're drinking, at a screen, and the idea of maybe lukewarm water and also of honey. I enjoyed that as well, because it's completely right. There's nothing that, and I know I've spoken to a lot of respiratory physicians, because I think every specialty will have its certain tricky conditions. So as a GP, we have all of them because everyone comes to us. But I think gastroenterologists get funny tummy pains, cardiologists get funny chest pains, and respiratory physicians get this intractable cough. So every specialty, neurologists get the ongoing headaches. I said, as GPs, we get it all. So, we have to deal with all of it. But as you say, it's very difficult to treat a cough. Those of you maybe those of you at home, we were tried you on antacids, we tried you on inhalers, tried you on this or that. But actually, I like the idea of honey. Generally, as long as it doesn't increase your sugar level too much, you'll be fine.
Just one last question, if you don't mind, doctor. Have you been seeing patients with this symptom? Because I've started getting the second day. First day I got only dry cough. Second day my tongue was very thick. As I said, I felt like I had to scrape quite a few times, and then it was like making my throat very dry. I haven't heard any COVID patient having that symptom, or is it a kind of a new type of symptom that people are getting?
In my experience, what we see, because how much you're drinking water. If you are not drinking plenty of water, then your tongue will get dry. And because of the humidity also, and it makes your tongue dry. And when the symptoms like fever, something comes, then water requirement need body more, and you are not supplementing that, so you will get dryness.
I'd agree. I think it's just that fluid intake. So we've actually just had a question from one of the guests just dialing in as well. It's actually for Navanitha Das. It's actually, you mentioned one of the breathing techniques, that of Brahmari, or any of them. Could you demonstrate one, just maybe a simple breathing technique for us? I think we may have lost Navanitha. I don't know if you're still there.
I'm just back now because it kicked me out. My connection was poor, I think.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, okay, I heard it. What I was trying to say that I was trying to take plenty of water. Even then, it was not sufficient. The tongue was thick like a rock, and then I really struggled the second day. But then, because I started taking the herb the next day, the third day onwards, I was fine. But the second day, it was really bad. I mean, that I was trying to drink plenty actually. And I am really good at drinking water. I keep a warm water bottle, a flask like this all the time by my side. I was teaching yoga and I was really not able to cope up because I need to talk. I'm giving instruction. My tongue was really thick and I was like, it was like going to choke my throat. I felt as if like that. So I was
We
trying to
recommend
understand
generally you
the
should
new
drink
symptom.
more than 3 liter water. This always keep positive balance. And that time we are losing a lot of water whenever we have symptoms like viral like symptoms like fever, tiredness. So requirement goes higher. So you have to increase more air requirement.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I think that stickiness, I think that secretions, whether on the chest or everywhere, that stickiness. And I think Dr. Ranjit mentioned maybe, when you're in hospital, maybe give you medications to sort of break up those secretions for very high risk patients. But even in the community, we'd recommend usually just hot or lukewarm water. There is a product, I don't know whether Dr. Ranjit, are you something you see in your COPD patients, but this is called carbocysteine. And carbocysteine, we don't usually use in COVID, but I've actually had 1 or 2 patients where I've tried it and it's helped. This is a mucolytic, so it will break down. But I wouldn't, usually recommend any stronger medications like that unless needed. But I think just simple hot or warm water, but that would be good. And so Navneet, we'll have you on. We're running out of time. Otherwise, we did have a question from a guest just for you to show us one of the breathing techniques like Brahmari very quickly, because I know we're Sheila's here online ready to start off with the next session. But maybe very briefly, you could just show us maybe in just half a minute a Brahmari technique.
Yeah, definitely. So sometimes we kind of bring our fingers on the nose, or sometimes you could just use your palms. I think because we have less time, just simply use your palms to cover your ears. You need to sit tall and you have to breathe, take a deep, long breath in. You have to hum very gently. You should not do forceful, loud sounds. As you gently hum, you have to start breathing out. You have to focus your mind into your nasal passage. Means you are just thinking the nasal passage in your mind. So you'll feel as if a bumblebee is making sound in your nasal passage, and you can actually practice up to 10 times during the day. And when you have got symptoms, you could practice even more. This is not at all harmful if you practice longer. All you have to do is very gentle humming sound. That sound has more frequency than when someone really shouts with anger. It has that much power.